The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
From being voted the most overrated player in the NFL to being voted NFL MVP.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast.
Be good, do good, God bless, and go Bills. The words that Josh Allen closed his acceptance speech with after being named NFL MVP. Let that sink in, folks. Josh Allen is the NFL MVP, and they got it right. I swelled with pride watching that go down on Thursday night. And look, I know we ultimately want a Super Bowl more than anything. And Josh Allen wants a Super Bowl more than anything. But this is pretty freaking cool. And it obviously puts an exclamation point on an incredible season for Josh Allen, but also his legacy and his story that is very much still being written. Josh Allen is an NFL MVP. The first Buffalo Bills player to do it since Thurman Thomas in 1991. The only other time it happened was O.J. Simpson in 1973. Thurman Thomas, 91. O.J. Simpson, 73. Josh Allen, 2024. End of list. I won't lie to you, folks. I got emotional watching his speech last night. Just so proud. I'm just so proud. And in typical Josh Allen fashion, during the speech, his acceptance speech, he made it about everyone else. It's an individual award, but he made it about everyone else. And first of all, before I really give you my thoughts on his speech, how cool was it to see Deion Dawkins on the stage when he accepted the award? If there's anybody who's been a champion for Josh Allen, it's Deion Dawkins. And of course, he's the blindside protector and has been since day one for Josh Allen. What a cool thing to see their relationship as left tackle, quarterback, and really the two guys that have been part of it offensively all the way through, the only two. And it's incredible. But of course, Josh doesn't make it about himself. He, first of all, thanks God. The other nominees, called them great stewards of the game and deserving if they were in his position. Thank the Bills organization, the Pagulas, Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott. Noted that while it's an individual award, it's derived from team success, and he thanked his teammates, complimented the locker room and the culture, and, of course, the support staff in the building. And there's a lot of people that work hard, whether it's equipment staff, training staff, cafeteria staff, facilities people, that work together for these players to go out there and perform. And Josh Allen was right in showing gratitude towards them as well. And then he thanked his parents. And my goodness, his parents were cutting onions. Could you imagine? That story is just so good. A farm family from small town California, growing cantaloupes, working hard. All of a sudden, your son's the MVP of the NFL, and they were overjoyed for sure. Really cool, special moment to see them and their reaction. He thanked his siblings, and he thanked his fiancée, Haley. It was awesome. I got emotional watching it. I'm sure a lot of you did too. Josh's journey, the Bills' journey, both have come such a far way. Allen couldn't get a scholarship to play college football, has to go to junior college, then begs for an opportunity to play big-time college football. He got the opportunity to do so at Wyoming. Certainly had his rough patches at Wyoming, but showcased undeniable talent. Ends up being the third quarterback drafted. Ridiculed, called a parody of a prospect. And here we are. And for the Bills, it was a long, long journey to find a franchise quarterback to replace Jim Kelly. You remember the names: Todd Collins, Alex Van Pelt, Rob Johnson, J.P. Lozman, Kelly Holcomb, Trent Edwards, Brian Brom, E.J. Manuel, Thad Lewis, Jeff Toole, Kyle Orton, Nathan Peterman, Doug Flutie, Drew Bledsoe, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tyrod Taylor. It was worth the wait, wasn't it? 17-year playoff drought. And look at us now. Playoff wins are now the norm in Buffalo. Someone asked me the other day to take the Chiefs roster, the Eagles roster, those are the two Super Bowl teams, and the Bills roster, and create a combined starting lineup using all three teams. And they said, how many Bills players do you think would start for all three teams? And he excluded the quarterback because nobody wants that conversation. I said, maybe Christian Benford, maybe Deion Dawkins, maybe, and that's it. It's pretty telling, right? In a soft reset year, Josh Allen had this Bills team at 13-4 and in the AFC Championship game. The standard that was set in Buffalo was met despite a significant roster turnover and a soft reset. The Bills had one other Pro Bowler. They had no other All-Pros. Josh Allen was truly the most valuable player in the NFL and the embodiment of what an NFL MVP is. It's awesome. This is absolutely awesome. All right, folks, let's talk about a Bills coaching staff hire that when this news came through, it had my head spinning, and I really started to tweet out a bunch of things, and people in our subtext community got a bunch of texts from me because my head was spinning when the Bills made this move. And so I want to break it down for you here on this podcast. So Bruce Feldman reports that Ryan Nielsen is expected to join the Bills defensive coaching staff as a senior defensive assistant. And so you're probably wondering, well, who's Ryan Nielsen? Well, Ryan Nielsen has recently been regarded as one of the bright up-and-coming defensive minds. And he served with he started really with the North Carolina State Wolfpack, really became a hot name. Then he went to the Saints, and he was their defensive line coach from 2017 through 2022. And then he was offered the LSU defensive coordinator job. And so they added the title of assistant head coach in 2021 in New Orleans. Then in 2022, he was named co-defensive coordinator. And when he was with the Saints, the defensive line had a lot of success. There was a 3-year stretch where they were top 3 in sacks, top 3 in pressure rate, very good pass rush group. And then he gets the opportunity to be the Falcons defensive coordinator in 2023. And, obviously that coaching staff got let go after the season. And then this past year, he was the Jaguars defensive coordinator. And boy, obviously the Jaguars' entire situation was rough and the defense was rough. But, what he did with the Saints, really successful stretch. And then, of course, even with the Falcons, they had a notable shift in scoring defense, and how it improved year over year was drastically different. And then they actually doubled their sack total year over year from the previous season. So a lot of good results there. So I like all that. That's all interesting to me. I like how he's been able to help pass rushes come along and regarded very highly. There's good connections here. Bobby Babich has referred to Ryan Nielsen as somebody that's in his inner circle. Dave Doran, the head coach at NC State, is somebody that has a relationship with Sean McDermott. But really the talking point that I can't get out of my head since this move was made and kind of just connecting dots is Ryan Nielsen's affiliation with man coverage. Last season, the Jaguars ran the second most man coverage in the NFL. The Falcons the year before, where he was the defensive coordinator, they were 11th in man coverage rate. And then the Saints in 2022, when he was the co-defensive coordinator, they were 8th in man coverage frequency. And the Bills are not a man coverage aggressive team. However, that sort of changed a bit this past season. During the 2024 season, the Bills played 20% man coverage, which is pretty normal for them. If you look at the last 4 or 5 years, they're about 20% man coverage, but that's not very frequent. It's 27th in the NFL. In the playoff run, the 3 playoff games, Broncos, Ravens, Chiefs, the Bills' man coverage rate skyrocketed to 37%. And if you look at the last 2, the Ravens and the Chiefs against Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, right? Huge games. The Bills ran 42% man coverage against those teams. 42% would be a crazy high frequency. Compared to the rest of the NFL, if the Bills ran 42% man coverage, that would have been the second highest rate of any team in the league during the 2024 regular season. And if they were to have maintained the 36.5% that they ran throughout the 3 playoff games, that would still be top 5. So in the biggest games of the season, the Bills really cranked up their man coverage, and they just hired a coach that has strong ties to playing man coverage. Certainly some dots to connect here that I certainly can't ignore. And then you look at this quote from Sean McDermott as I continue to really just kind of drive this home. Sean McDermott was asked in his year-end press conference about playing so much man coverage against Kansas City, right? They played 42% man coverage against Kansas City, and obviously we know that the defensive results are very poor. But this is what Sean McDermott said, and I quote, "When they are getting the ball out fast and you're in zone, you can sit there and live a slow death or tighten it up and play man." Look, we can dissect that quote in a million different ways. And I think the Bills' failures in man coverage had a lot to do with Christian Benford being injured early in the game, but also the rub routes that Kansas City ran, and then just the levels that the Bills' defensive backs were on. They were oftentimes on the same level, and so when you saw those switch releases, when you saw those rubs, it would bump guys off course. They couldn't stay in phase, and guys are wide open, and Pat Mahomes was just getting the ball out quick, and it was a disaster. We know that. But he said, when they are getting the ball out fast and you're in zone, you can sit there and live a slow death, or you can tighten it up and play man. The Bills' defense in 2024 had a number of issues. But one of those issues was defending quick passes. The Bills' defense in 2024 was 23rd in defensive EPA per pass on throws that came out in under 2.5 seconds. And as you may remember, Patrick Mahomes in that game got the ball out in crazy fast. I think under 2 seconds on average. It was like 1.8 or something. And it was crazy.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. Imagine going to the big game this Sunday. That's what a lot of the people around me here on Radio Row are going to do, and the fans who are coming to New Orleans. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have time searching. Inspiration makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and take the work on tickets. Gametime. Download Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
The Chiefs are 60 minutes, 4 quarters, and 1 trophy away from another championship.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Right now, where it all begins is how do you take this season-long projection and put it all together? This is going to be the 100th game this team has played in the last 5 seasons. That's monumental. And putting all that experience and all that fatigue, the less time with your family, the more time in recovery, all together to try to get this done is epic to the point where it's almost unfathomable. So you have the veterans in Mahomes, obviously the older guys in Kels. Then you have all this youth. You're trying to pull all these groups together. It all comes down to one thing. Do you want to win this and go into the history books more than you're willing to concede any play at any time, at any moment in this ballgame? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I think that it's an obvious answer for anybody on this team. They're going to want to sacrifice everything they can for this game, for this team to win a Super Bowl. And it goes beyond just the guys that are the young guys now. It goes beyond the guys that have been here for the past 2 years or last year that were drafted last year. It's now the rookies even. The rookies want to play for a Super Bowl. They want to win a Super Bowl. Xavier Worthy wants to win a Super Bowl. He wants to be a Super Bowl champion his rookie season, like the 2 previous Chiefs draft classes before him. That is what's crazy about this. And, we don't talk about a guy in Jared Wiley who's not even going to be able to play in this game. But you're sitting here looking at another guy that is another rookie that would have probably been having, some impact on Sunday. Unfortunately, he can't play, obviously. It will be out. But you look at this game, you look at what this is going to mean for this Chiefs team. You talk about playing 100 games in 5 years. I'll up you the fact that they have actually played an extra 6 weeks of football compared to just about any other team in the NFL because they're playing 2 weeks after every single year. Like the Eagles are the only other team that are even close when you start looking at how many weeks they've been playing football, how many weeks they've been doing different things. And it goes further because the Chiefs don't even get into their offseason program, their offseason stuff until after the Super Bowl. And now you're getting ready to play in this game that you've been building the entire season for and building ever since last year. And now it's finally here. And you're sitting here thinking, okay, all this started, all of this comes down to, and I will never forget, if you go back and watch the last drive of the game, last Super Bowl against the 49ers, they're talking about, the announcers are talking about, Jim Nantz is talking about how you have played since July. You've been training since July and August. And actually, you've probably been training since May or April for the Super Bowl. Like, that's how long you've been doing this. It's almost a year-long process, and you're finally here. This team is going to be ready. They're going to put it out all out on the field. The bigger question is can the Eagles come out and not be a little bit are the Eagles going to come out and play loose? Because if they don't, that's going to be a problem for them.
And I think it's a problem for their staff as well. For the Chiefs and how formidable they are, any staff looking at them has to be a little bit shriveled. You got to be real. And I think this one in particular has some axes to grind. Doesn't particularly care for the Chiefs fan base, even though he was here for a while. And Sirianni is a guy that I think it's easy to root against if you're not an Eagles fan. Just like everybody seems right now to root against Mahomes if you're not a Chiefs fan. Okay, fine. The question becomes, what do you do to put it together? And it's about understanding yourself first. Self-scouting is key. I'm sure they've done more of it. They seem to have emerged with their plan coming together, and we talked about that a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, folks. The plan to get to this point so that you're healthy, so that you have everything going in the right direction, that has come to fruition, and that makes all the difference in the world. But now you got to go execute. And it's about not just having confidence in your teammates or the new guys or even the rookies that are in here, but understanding that no matter what happens, you're going to have an answer. If they come out and they're jamming you in the line of scrimmage, you can't throw the ball you want to, you can go back and run. If they're going to leave the box light, you're going to have to run. If they feel like, you know what, they can get away with anything and bring another guy down, you have to make them pay for it. All of that is confidence instilling. It just takes continued effort, much like we've seen the last 2 weeks, which I think has been really a positive foreshadowing here. He said when you have to rely on the defense, they can get their part done as well. The offense has been ticking along, especially in the first quarter. I expect this game to be off to a fast start, one way or the other. Now, the outcome will be different. We're going to give you our predictions coming up in a little bit, but it's got to start fast for me.
No, it absolutely has to start fast, and the Chiefs need to start fast. And if the Eagles don't start fast, that's going to be a problem for them because I guarantee you Kansas City is going to start fast. Andy Reid is going to have a first 15 plays that he feels extremely comfortable with, and I expect Mahomes is going to come out and he's going to execute. I said this on our crossover show, and I'll say it again. Patrick Mahomes was outplayed by Jalen Hurts the last time they played in the Super Bowl. I don't think that anybody can really argue that. Jalen Hurts played a game that was almost flawless, except for the fumble. Yeah, except for the fumble. If he doesn't fumble that ball, maybe they end up winning the game. Who knows? But it's Patrick Mahomes, so I'm never going to say that they would have actually won. But because he does whatever it takes to get the win. The reality, though, is they're going up against the number one defense, number one scoring defense in the NFL. You know what Patrick Mahomes' record is against the number one defense in the NFL in his career?
I bet you're going to tell me.
8-2. He's 8-2 versus the number one scoring defense in the NFL. And let's not forget that when the Philadelphia Eagles played the Chiefs the last time, they beat them, and Fangio wasn't their coach at the time, but he came back and tried to help them, and it didn't work out. Do you know what Fangio's record against Andy Reid in the last 8 games is?
His has an 8 in the loss column. That's the only one I know because I think there's nothing else, right?
No, he's 0-8 against Andy Reid in the last 8 games. Andy Reid has figured out Fangio to an extent. Now, is this defense different than anything Fangio's ever had? Yeah. Are they going to do things differently than Fangio's probably done all season? I don't know. Fangio seems to be a coach that really sticks to what he normally does and expects the offense to make adjustments and to force the offense to try to beat him at his game. If he does that, good luck, because I am sure Andy Reid has a plan for how he's going to attack Fangio's defense.
I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. Imagine going to the big game this Sunday. That's what a lot of the people around me here on Radio Row are going to do, and the fans who are coming to New Orleans. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have time searching. Inspiration makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and take the work on ticket. Gametime. Download Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast.
All right, so one of the biggest deciding factors in Super Bowl 59, I think, is going to be how Jalen Hurts handles pressure against Steve Spagnuolo's Kansas City Chiefs defense. And Jalen's been a mixed bag, I would say, this year and even, throughout the entirety of his career against the blitz, against different disguised pressure packages, man blitzes versus zone blitzes, just pressure in general, even it's from just the 4 defensive linemen getting to him. It's been a mixed bag. I think there's a lot of numbers out there you can cherry pick to say he's not a good quarterback against pressure. There's a lot of numbers out there you can cherry pick to say he is good against pressure. Overall, it's hit or miss. It's an inconsistent thing with Jalen. But I will say this year, against the blitz, Hurts' numbers do look good. He had an average 77.5% completion percentage against defenses that blitzed him, 8 passing touchdowns to just 1 interception. So those numbers do look good. I think his efficiency numbers don't look as great, especially against zone blitzes. But if we get this version of Jalen Hurts against Kansas City, they're going to win this football game because Spags kind of lives and dies with pressure. I mean, you saw it. It paid off against Buffalo. That corner blitz with Trent McDuffie on 4th down and the gotta-have-it game on the line drive in the 4th quarter, it was beautiful. And he's going to do that against Jalen. And I think zone blitzes, that's where Jalen in the pocket especially has to make sure he's getting the ball out. He's processing what's happening on the field, pre and post snap, using the middle of the field. The man blitzes, though, are where I feel a lot more confident because, yes, there are times, especially against zone blitzes, where Jalen tends to panic. He drops his eyes. he holds onto the ball for too long, relies a little bit too much on his legs, and he's not looking downfield. But there are other times, especially against man blitzes, where he's super decisive. He gets the ball out quick, and he uses his legs to open up the pass. Like, he uses his legs to escape the initial rush, but then he keeps his eyes downfield, and he can carve up pressure. Like, he did it on Sunday in the NFC Championship against the Washington Commanders. And the Chiefs, like, yes, I think they'll throw some zone blitzes at him, but the Chiefs do play press man coverage more than half the time. So the Chiefs actually line up their outside corners, and this is from Next Gen Stats, 51.5% of the time, their outside corners are playing press man coverage. So if the Chiefs blitz and play man coverage, which is kind of the backbone, the core foundation of what that defense does, I think if Jalen is on his game, and again, we don't know which version of Hurts we're going to get, but if we get the Commanders Jalen and not the Rams Jalen, I think it could be an advantage for the Eagles that the Chiefs have that game plan. Because then what happens with that man coverage ability is if Jalen Hurts escapes the rush, man coverage, their back's going to be turned to Jalen. So he could pick up a lot of rushing yards in that way, but also you're going to get a lot of one-on-one looks for A.J. Brown, for Devontae Smith, for Dallas Goedert, heck, even a Jahan Dotson, who I think, hey, if his number is called, and it rarely is, but if his number is called, like it was for Quez Watkins in a big spot on a deep ball down the middle of the field in the fourth quarter, unlike Quez Watkins, I think Dotson's going to catch that ball. I think he's going to be much more like Torrey Smith in Super Bowl 52. Torrey Smith, his number wasn't called a lot in the NFC title in the Super Bowl, but when it was, the flea flicker, the helmet catch on third down, he made a couple other big plays in that game. Torrey Smith came through. Quez Watkins did not. I think Dotson can be your Torrey Smith. And they're going to have one-on-one opportunities. I think you could have some explosive plays come from the Eagles beating the Chiefs' pressure on defense. A.J. Brown, I mean, he has the highest yards per route run this year against press man coverage. He's literally the best wide receiver in the league going up against what the Chiefs do best. So I'm not guaranteeing that Jalen's going to completely carve up Spags, and I think Spags is going to throw him a lot of simulated pressures, disguised looks. It's going to look like they're coming through the A-gap, and those guys drop back, and here comes the slot corner, maybe vice versa. There's going to be times they're playing zone. There's going to be times they're playing man. There's been times that Jalen's not great in these situations, but there's other times where he's also very good. And if you get that version of Hurts, there's a big-time opportunity, I think, to get explosive plays. And that's so huge because one of the keys to this game is getting out ahead early, is being aggressive early, building up a lead, so then you can pin your ears back and say, we're going to rely on Saquon Barkley and the offensive line the rest of the way. We're going to control time of possession. The best way to beat Pat Mahomes is to keep Pat Mahomes off the field. We're going to try to have 7 to 10 minute drives because we built up a lead. That is so important against Kansas City. And if you're hitting on those explosive plays, if you're winning the time of possession battle, if Jalen Hurts is winning against pressure, if those three keys happen, I don't know if the Chiefs can keep up. Like, the Chiefs are a very, very good football team. Pat Mahomes is a top 2 player of all time. Andy Reid is a top 2 head coach of all time, in my opinion. But if the Chiefs are, if the Eagles are on their A game, if they're winning against pressure, if they're getting explosive plays early in the game, they're not sluggish to start like they were earlier in the year, if they're capitalizing and scoring touchdowns, not field goals, they're not shooting themselves in the foot with self-inflicted mistakes. If they do these things, like, I really think they're going to win this football game. Like, those are such important factors. And it's not just on Jalen. Kellen Moore, he needs to be on his A game like he was against Washington, where he's giving Jalen quick answers against the blitz. That's what I liked, is compared to the Rams and Packers game, the ball was out quickly. They were saying, hey, just get the ball in space to your playmakers and let them do their thing. Heck, maybe you get Saquon Barkley more involved in the receiving game in this game as well. That's something that's kind of been missing lately. Maybe you get him involved in the screen game to try to counter this, although the screen game hasn't been great this year. Maybe you try to dial that back up, or some wheel routes with Saquon on a Nick Bolton in the open field, or a Chanel. I think that's a big-time key. And it's going to be like, that's one of the big-time chess matches I'm really looking for. It can't be like the Rams game where routes are just taking way too long to develop. But Jalen at the same time can't panic, can't let the moment be too big for him. Keep your eyes up, even if you're going to evade pressure with your legs. Try to create with your legs, to create for the pass, to create for your arm. Because I think there can be opportunities with Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and Dallas Goedert against this Chiefs secondary.